Good morning, Beverly.
Good morning. It's early.
It is. Congratulations to us both for being here so early, right? Thank you so much for agreeing to have this chat with me and expand on your session. It was, again, pretty mind-blowing. It seems to be creating a ripple effect to those who are listening to it, and I know they have more questions, but I just really want to kind of explore with you. We've been talking in conversations since your session about the information that you've been receiving, and it takes some pretty deep concepts that you mentioned in your session and goes way deeper even, which I just think is amazing. I know in QHHT sessions, it's common when people come out of the sessions to afterwards, as they're processing the information, to receive some new information or understand what they saw or experienced deeper. It's kind of a phenomena in this hypnosis setting where you're aware of so much more than what you can talk about. And that's why we like to try to ask really open-ended questions to let you share as much information as you can. And we tried, but yet there was just so much more information. And so today I'd like to kind of walk everybody through this extra information that you were receiving then and have received since. Is that okay?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. When you decided to have this session, what were you thinking was going to happen? Because I'm guessing it wasn't what happened.
No, not at all. Not even in the least. So I approached it with no strings attached, honestly. I was more worried about questions about my current life and, things like that, because I'm reading online, to get something out of this, you really need to focus on good questions about, what's going on, things you might wonder about. And so I was focusing on that, but not really putting out there that I needed the answer to any of it. It was kind of weird.
Well, it's kind of nice in a way because, Dolores would always say to have no expectations in these sessions to get the most from it. And I have to say you were pretty good with coming in with very little expectations and just letting it go where it needed to go, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had zero expectations. I didn't feel like going into it, my whole world was going to get answered, how people would think that, honestly.
Sure.
But for some reason I didn't have that going in. It just kind of was open.
Very good.
Yeah, I think that helped.
There's so much information about this designer that came through, and all this information about energy and molecules and the shift and all of that. But let's begin with your past life, because it was like sitting watching a movie as you described your experience in that lifetime. And I know I have watched the comments come in on YouTube and Facebook and social media, and there's quite a few people trying to figure out who you were and everything, all the juicy bits of that life, which is fabulous. But I want to explain to people why I've asked you about this, and you really have no worries about that. You have no ego in figuring out who you were or any really more besides that, because what we see in these sessions is that lifetime that you get shown is picked specifically by your high self or your this great part of you to help you understand something in your current life more deeply, right?
Yes.
And it did, right?
Absolutely. They hit the mother load.
And so to you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was the most important part, looking back on what you were shown in the past life, not who your identity was or the places, even the times, the events. Would that be close to what you were thinking?
Yeah. it's really interesting. I'm not really playing into it to the point of wanting to find out like myself, but I'm sure other people definitely would be curious. But from a personal perspective, it really hit me to help me understand what has been going on in my life. And I mean, there's synchronicities that I'm just like, I look back in my life and I'm like, oh, that's why that, and that's why that, and oh my goodness, this just happened, and that's why this is happening. And so I'm more tied up in processing my reality that's tied to that, instead of like who I was and, those important aspects as from maybe an outsider point of view would be, because it's so personal, touching me in my reality right now. It's just so profound. I anybody who needs to go through this needs to go through this. I mean, it's so profound. And you can watch a video all day long, but experiencing it is completely different.
Yes, and then I would put about 15 exclamation marks after that.
Yeah, this didn't come with a warning label.
Maybe I should add that. That's funny. Well, and that's the beauty of it. From a practitioner's point of view, we never know where you guys are going to go. We're listening to your life story ahead of the hypnosis portion, and we understand a bit about what your life has been like and what you're seeking through your list of questions to find out more about yourself. But there are times when I'm sitting beside the client and they're in the past life, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they're showing them this life. I just like, okay. And sometimes you can grasp, oh, I get this. This is I see why they're tying this in. But the beauty of it is, by the end of the session, we know exactly why you were showing that life. There are zero coincidences with that life being chosen for you. And it just so beautifully, subtly, and overtly ties into the current life. It's like a masterpiece, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It truly is. I was actually embarrassed when I heard it the first time, and almost in shock, to be honest. Like, are you kidding me? Is this even real? I'm a skeptic at heart, but there it is. And then, of course, I shared with two close people in my life, and that's all at this point. And they're both just like looking things up, and they're showing me things, and I'm like, well, I guess it has to be real.
You can't make this stuff up is one of my quotes,
Overwhelming, that you're just like, oh, okay, it's there, it's right in front of your face, like, here it is, so you just have to roll with it.
Right. Okay. And I just want to clarify, because I think I added to confusion in that life for those who are interested in sleuthing here. I think I said that you were at one point from Lisbon, Scotland, but those are obviously there's not a Lisbon in Scotland, but so if I can clarify.
Figure that out.
I looked. But you grew up in that lifetime in Scotland.
Yes.
And then the man that you married was from Spain. Say that again.
He took me far away, and I went back and I listened. I closed where he took me. I just said it was far away. So I wonder if I was having a hard time connecting where that was, if that makes sense. I don't have a lot of geographical background in this life.
Right.
And, if it's not United States, and I haven't even done a lot of traveling in the United States, I've done some, not a lot, it's not really going to be there. So
right.
And I was like, what? Spain? Portugal? Everybody knows there's castles in Scotland, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay, I get that. But I had no idea that there was even castles in Portugal or Spain or any of that. So it's really shocking to me, actually. It's very, very overwhelming.
Sure. Not, again, not what you expected, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
So then we make the transition over to what we typically call the high self. Now, from the very first sentence that you said, we notice a change as you listen, and the voice becomes very interesting, almost robotic or mechanical sounding.
This is all a fabrication.
So is it like a simulated universe or Earth?
Each person simulates their own existence. They literally are just sitting in molecular structure by themselves in nothingness at the bottom of nothingness. They don't realize this. They are creators of their solid physical universe. We are all existing in different universes of creation that each energy light source has created in itself.
Who do you speak as?
The others. Part of the people doing the experiment.
The engineers?
No. Design work. That's why she is a good creator and designer. I am here with her always, designing to slip things into the collective through her design work.
Beautiful. So are you the same as a high self or different?
Different.
And different in what ways?
She has many. She has guides. There are source energy angels. There is source. She is directly linked to source. There is an energy that flows through her to source, from her feet, through her body, out her head to source. She knows that she has started working with it.
Now, for those who haven't heard that happen before, it has happened in some of my sessions, not a lot of them. But when it happens, because it's such a unique tone, I always ask for the client at some point in the session why the voice is coming through this way, because they're going to wonder about that. And you answered it beautifully. And I think it's just, we have to understand that part of us, still us, but is a very high vibration and frequency, and its vibration and frequency goes through our vocal cords differently than our awake and aware voice. And everybody shifts in some way, very subtly, sometimes, again, more overtly. Yours was very different and very cool.
Well, I'm glad you think it's cool. It shocked my core. Hearing myself talk that way, I was just, what? Is that even possible? How is this happening?
Were you aware that your voice was sounding that different during the session, or was that something you weren't aware of?
Somewhat, but I was off in the distance. And we will probably touch base on that in this interview, because I realized 2 days later that there was a whole missing piece. And so I had messaged you and let you know, like, hey, for some reason, I thought you were seeing what I was seeing, so I didn't describe it. And that's when I figured out there was so much more to this.
I love that. I mean, I'd love to have been with you visually to see what you were seeing, and we'll get to that part, because it really expands on a really deep concept that you mentioned. So with that, you've sent me some really great notes. I want to try to hit those, but the key, I don't know, I guess the key things that we'll try to cover today is about the simulation, what the designer, this great part of you, called the experiment, the engineers and the designer herself, and then this information that has come through you, especially that part that you thought I was alongside you, which is awesome. So is that okay if we kind of go in that order, and then we can hit everything else as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It really makes me wonder if other people, when they go through the process, they might be feeling the same way, that they, because you're guiding it, I guess. And in the room, somehow I felt like, oh, well, she's here. Must be seeing it. And I don't know if other people might be feeling that way also. So I had to put that out there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I would love to put on some special classes and go with you guys all the time. Okay, so I'm going to read just a little bit here about where it was about an hour and 26 is where we start to get into this really deep material of your session. And the designer, before we know that that's her title, says, this is all a fabrication. Each person simulates their own existence. They are literally just sitting in molecular structure by themselves, sitting in nothingness at the bottom of nothingness. They don't realize this. They are creators of their solid physical universe. We are all existing in different universes of creation that each energy life force has created itself.
Do you want me to explain visually what was going on at that moment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's a very big missing piece to this. And so visually, what I'm seeing when that is happening, I think I was trying to describe it, but I didn't actually visually. And there's two pieces. There's a visual part, and then there's a download of understanding what you're seeing, if that makes sense. So it's two pieces. And the missing piece here was the visual part. So I was literally explaining what they were showing me and putting the information out there without the visual aspect. So visually, here I am, and I think I'm me at this time, like literally, like my soul, and I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing it out of my eyes. It's literally black. Like, there's nothing. There's no feeling. There's no energy. There's nothing. It's just, I mean, there's no bottom, there's no top, there's no sides. It's just empty. And it was dark, like black, you know. It didn't feel bad. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel like anything. It was just, and I think that's why I was calling it the nothingness, because literally it was nothing. And it existed so far beyond what we could even understand. And so here's where it gets really interesting. So the next piece would be, they showed me the cylinders, but they're not solid. And they do have form, but they're not solid. And I don't know how to explain that, but I'm doing the best I can. And in the bottom of this cylinder, there's a soul, which represents, I'm guessing, a person. And in the bottom of that cylinder, that soul is creating all of the molecules and their vibrations inside of that cylinder. But it's not solid, but it stays contained. I don't know how to explain that.
Okay.
And they literally are in control of it. The soul is. And so that right there, that piece is huge.
So
huge.
They are in control of it, meaning the engineers and the designer?
Nope, the soul itself is the creator of the cylinder and all of the molecules and their vibrations inside of it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then it gets crazier. On top of, and they only showed me 3. They presented 3 in front of me. And I don't know at this point if that has any kind of importance or significance.
3 cylinders?
Yes. But from what I understand, there's so much more. And they kind of explained to me that if they would show me how many there really were, it would have been so overwhelming that I don't know if I mentally could absorb all of it.
Okay.
And I know this is going to sound like a lot of information, but it's actually just the very tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to all of this. And it's just, it's, wow, remarkable. So on top of the cylinders, I see these, again, nothing is actually really like in a true solid form. It's like it would be blurred, but it's there. And so on top of the cylinders are the engineers. And they pretty much, they float atop the cylinders.
Okay.
They don't have a face. They don't have legs. They don't have arms. They're not like anything I've ever seen before. So for me to describe exactly what it looked like, I can only do the best I can, because it wasn't anything like what we would see here or in human form or anything like that. And so I would give them more of like a triangular shape, more like a pyramid, but not strong points or strong lines. It was very blurred and very soft and more rounded. And the coloring was very dark. It was dark with like a dark blue. So not completely dark blue, but not black. And you could see it in the nothingness, which was black.
Okay.
That makes sense. So these things sit on top of the cylinders, but not directly. They hover above it. And they told me those are the engineers. I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is weird. What is all this? Now, the cylinders in the nothingness don't actually show up. Honestly, they just don't. So if you look at it, you're just seeing black. But they explained it to me to where they're actually there, if that makes sense. So the cylinders are there, but they're not there.
Okay.
My mind's eye knew that it was there, but looking at it, you couldn't see all of that.
Okay.
I know, it's really, really weird. And so I'm going to take it just a step further even. On top of the cylinders is actually an energy current that flows like a wave that connects all of the cylinders.
Okay. Okay. So they're not just individual all on their own. There's a connection amongst all of the cylinders.
Yes, through the top of them.
Okay.
And it moves and it flows like a wave.
Okay.
And the engineers float atop the wave.
Okay. So what's the purpose of having the wave that connects all of them?
That, to me, they explained, was actually the collective.
Wow.
The collective consciousness, how we're all connected, and how
Okay.
all own individual simulated realities that our soul is creating in these cylinders goes up. These molecules can go up into the collective and connect to everybody else's simulated realities.
That's a lot. That's very cool.
Yeah, it was a lot. So I'm seeing this visually, and I'm saying all of this stuff because they're explaining to me like what's going on. But I for some reason, I thought you were seeing all that.
I'm going to have to work on that skill. That would be really nice.
Right?
Was there more to that part that you got afterwards, or was it just that at that point?
So yes, there's definitely more, but I had to explain the visual part that ties into everything. So have vibrations, of course. Now the soul, through its creation, and they explained to me that, because of, and I don't know how people want me to say this, if it's God or source, I'm not sure what everyone's comfortable with. It's all the same thing. The creator,
right.
Of all. So we'll just source. He is the creator of all of this, including us and the designers, all of it. And what he did by giving us choice is what he allowed us to have a piece of him to allow us to create in the likeness of him, but not the same level.
Not the same level.
No.
So is this what you would call like our free will and our own creativity, our individual creativity?
I would call this, it is free will for sure. It's choice. It's through every thought, through every choice, through every decision, through everything we want to absorb, every feeling. I mean, all senses, taste, sight, smell, feeling, psychic awareness, anything you want to put to it is something that we're choosing in the creative process. So that's beautiful because we actually get to choose our creation. So if something's bad, you're perceiving it as bad, so you're choosing to perceive it as bad.
Right.
Right.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so where do you want to go with this next? I'm gonna let you lead it.
Okay. So the engineer tools.
Yeah, he mentions that there's tools that take out some of the like rogue molecules. Is that right?
Yes. I think we should talk a little bit about that. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I can't explain what this tool looks like. I've never seen it before. And of course they don't have hands. So, how do you explain something that you've never seen using a tool you've never seen to extract molecules that you've never seen? So they're literally sitting on top of the cylinder. It's quite interesting. And when they find a molecule inside of there that you're trying to get rid of, or they think, the collective needs to be done with that. And I'll go more into that too, because I did get a major download on what's going on with that.
Okay.
The tool literally kind of goes down into the simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And
simulation being the individual soul.
Yep.
Okay.
The cylinder, inside the cylinder of molecules, and it extracts the molecule out. So it no longer is affecting the other molecules. And that's the other thing I didn't even touch base on. So as we're creating things and making choices, it affects the other molecules in the simulation because it's a vibration. And the vibration changes the molecules around it. And that's how some of the ideas through the ages get spread like a forest fire.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so it's not only affecting all the molecules of the individual, but it's floating up to the top and affecting that wave through the collective.
Yes, absolutely. And a good example of this that I was explaining with you, and I don't know if I'm allowed to use it as an example, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Like when Steve Jobs is in his garage and he gets the idea to create the computer, that was an actual designed molecule by a designer. And then the designer gave it over to the engineer. The engineer took the tool and implemented it inside of the cylinder to become a thought form, to take form in the reality.
Very cool. And the cylinder being the cylinder of Steve Jobs is in this example.
Yes, yes. And so there he is. He gets this idea. And so the idea, he starts working with it. And as he's working with it, the vibration of him working with that one molecule that holds that idea starts changing the molecules in his simulation, creating more ideas that the vibration is bouncing off of each other. And eventually what happens is one of these molecules floats up to the top of the cylinder, connects with the collective, and now the collective is starting to grasp some of these ideas. And then some of those molecules, because of how they are attracted to each other by the vibration, they drop down into other people's simulations. And what this is how things spread throughout our consciousness and our world, and how we change things and the ideas.
Wow. So that really explains fear and, where we're at right now and how fear is spread like a wildfire. through our current experiences.
Yes, actually fear, from what I understood, actually today, this was the major download. Fear is one of our biggest tools. And they explained it this. If you can take fear and step back from it and figure out, okay, why am I having this fear? Where is it stemming from? Figure out if it actually holds resonance within your reality. What are you accepting that is accepting fear? Because that fear is actually a vibration that is hitting the different molecules and forming in your reality, creating more fear. So the more we can sit within that fear and figure out if it's a vibration we actually want to partake in, then we can start transforming the molecules in our own individualized simulated reality. And this is a huge part of what's going on. Now, there is a part of the cylinders, people that are creating things that create masses of fear that go up into the collective. And the people that are a vibrational match to those molecules and fear, they drop down into that simulation, creating more fear. And then it starts transforming in the reality and shifting more people. And so it kind of gets out of control. So what I guess I'm supposed to ask people to do at this point is to sit in their own reality and start actually replacing fear with other things that are more productive for them. This is part of the shift.
Yes.
We can't actually shift. And I guess that's literally why it's called the shift, is because we're supposed to shift our molecules and our way of thinking and take control over this. And that's what a so-called light worker is. So to hold the light, we actually have to stay in the vibration of the light and step back from fear, step back from everything that's happening, and start taking control in our own simulated realities. And that essentially will leak up into the collective and start spreading as well. But we have to do this at more of a massive level to help the engineers out, actually.
Okay, so let me go back to your session then. So when the designer says there's two molecules that the engineers are trying to extract, and I think I asked, is that fear because of the virus and everything? How do you understand that?
So 2 simulations created these 2 molecules of extreme fear.
2 humans.
Yep.
Okay.
They're at their soul level, and their simulation created this intense amount of fear attached to this virus. And then it started transforming in their simulations and vibrating with different molecules. And some of those molecules actually went up into the collective and started spreading. And the only way, and this is so funny, that people can actually catch on to this amount of fear is if they're a vibration to it.
So repeat that. If there's a what?
Vibrational match to it.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. We can actually work truly as a light worker by changing our vibrational matches, and actually holding the light. This isn't like some weird hippie stuff, we're like, oh, we're just going to think positive thoughts. No, we have to do a lot of work. We actually have to look at this stuff and figure out where it's attacking us personally and transform it at our own soul level.
That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's whoa.
Because that creates the shift into where we're trying to go to, and the designer said they had to put everything on the shift on hold to deal with this negativity and fear that's been caused by these two molecules.
Yeah.
Well, and then I don't know if you want to go there, but it also gave this really interesting information about how the virus is carrying one of the greatest teachings or lessons we can have, and it's the understanding, looking at it each molecule separately to understand this great surprise element that we packed, that we created into the virus. What do you recall about that?
So the virus it was meant to be used as a learning tool to advance us in the molecular levels of the human body, and understanding that each cell does hold a memory and a vibration that we're literally holding on to inside of us, and it shapes the reality outside 3D. And so because it's man-made, which is very important, it needed to be man-made so it could continue to mutate, forcing us to go into that research and forcing us to actually see what's there and uncover things that we didn't know before. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I think the designer at that point just giggled and said, you know, you guys are so silly how you create things to learn from, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I want to get to your notes because there's just a lot to cover here. I don't know if I should start from your notes from today or from this morning. This morning, you just got a ton of information. How is this for you, by the way? I mean, this.
I was minding my own business.
Well, and if we can go back, you were saying before your session, a year at least before your session, you would be exercising and kind of in the zone of you, and you would be getting little pieces of this information, but you didn't have a context to put it to. Is that right?
Absolutely no context. Just small bits would come out of nowhere, and I'm like, what does that mean? How am I getting? Well, how am I supposed to talk about this to anybody? It's so weird.
And then you come to your session and it's like an avalanche that comes out of you, right? And that's similar to the little bits of information you're getting building up to the time of your session. Is that right?
Yes, some of it was, and some of it was completely different and new that I can't even imagine. Like, I don't even know how we would create anything to fabricate what this looked like. It's so bizarre.
Well, and Beverly, if I know this answer, but for the audience, do you have a background in molecular science or quantum physics?
No.
Do you want to share with people what your background is?
Oh, do you want me to tell everyone?
Sure.
Hairdresser.
You're a hairdresser.
I'm a hairdresser.
And we were giggling even more because I'm a former hairdresser and not a molecular scientist, not a quantum physicist.
No.
Mind if I jump in here for just a sec?
Sure.
You can refer to yourself now as the quantum hairdresser.
I love that. Messengers and masters and teachers come in all shapes and forms. And it just, to me, that's just so beautiful to not have that background. And yet this deep information flows through Beverly.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to pull up your notes here from this morning, I believe. Oh my goodness.
Here, I wrote some too, but I can't, let me look. I have to go back a couple pages. There's so much. No.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm back on track here.
Can we talk about energy for a second too?
Yes.
People all that.
Yes, please.
Because I'm looking at these notes and I feel like we can't talk about anything else until the energy is somewhat discussed a little more clearly, and it's probably just the beginning of understanding it, honestly.
Agreed. Yes, please do. Go ahead.
So from what I understand, energy is actually tied to our emotions that are tied to our thoughts and our memories and our experiences. And then that helps the molecules vibrate in the simulation. Is that
wow?
That makes
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Beverly, because I mean, you just think about it. Like when we get wrapped up in fear, we feel it, right? Or if we're in love or, having a joyful experience, we feel it. So that's just breaking down what is occurring in order to have that feeling.
absolutely. And the memories are tied to this because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's happening now and if you're mentally creating it or thinking it or going back through a memory. It doesn't know the difference. And the one thing I do know, because I was in sports, is that they use that, to sit and, you sit cross-legged and you go through whatever it is you're supposed to be doing with that sport from beginning to end perfectly. And the brain is actually simulating that. And you're not actually playing the sport or doing whatever you're doing. It doesn't know the difference. And for me, that was a huge impact when they said memories. Because I think that's how it works. Like, even if we go back through memories and we're reliving something that is happy or sad or scary, that actually changes our vibration in that moment.
And you actually gave such a beautiful understanding in your session about how you can release those vibrations that are fearful or scary, or you don't have to carry them anymore if you don't want to.
Yeah, nobody should have. I think that's part of the shift is we have to go in and start helping, get rid of some of this. If we're continuing to create this stuff, how are the engineers going to keep up extracting and extracting and extracting continuously if we're just going to continue creating, all of the things that we're not wanting to experience anymore?
Well, it's like fanning the fires of the fear, right? That they said are running crazy across the planet right now.
Oh, absolutely. And this fear is not necessarily, it's very funny. They explained to me that this fear is showing up for each person in a different way. It's like, okay, let's get afraid of all of this, but it's actually going to draw up other experiences in your life that made you fearful, creating more of a pandemic of fear.
Wow. So it's really kind of just self-work on releasing it and not creating new fear.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So with that, can we talk a little bit about 2025?
Oh, yes, we can. My notes too, because I did write some notes.
You mentioned 2025 in the session in relation to when there's going to be a great change, right? When the molecules, was 2025 when the two molecules are going to be extracted?
2025, they're trying to give that a date as to when they're going to start introducing the new molecules of new understanding for 40 and 5. But that's get a hold of, control of all of this. And so the most important part of this whole conversation is to make people aware that we have to go from within and start transforming and stopping the vibration of these molecules to help the shift, literally.
So we got it. We're cleaning up our act with the fear right now so that the new molecules can come in around the time frame they gave of 2025.
Yes. And of course, that all depends on human choice. I mean, we are literally in control of that, which is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And that's the time frame to keep changing because people keep changing.
Right. Although we do like to have like the exact date, the time, when these changes are going to happen, but it's up to us. We can speed it up if we want to.
Oh, we could. But I mean, everybody would have to do their work and do their part. And that's all part of this. When everybody got together and said, hey, we're done living life this way. We don't want to continue this. And we came together as a collective, which is that energy that literally floats along the top of all of the reality simulations. that became very apparent that humans were like, whoa, what is going on here? We're waking up and we're not liking this. What do we do? And honestly, that brings me back to the part that I was talking about, the top spinning with no direction.
Right. You mentioned that in the session a couple of times.
Yeah. That's people waking up. They're acting like tops, just spinning out of control, and they don't have any direction. They don't know what to do. They don't understand it, but they're awake and they know they don't like certain things.
Oh my gosh. I see that in my sessions all the time. It's so common for people to come and say, I know I need to be doing something different. I know I want to be helping, but I don't know what that is. And, I've got this regular job and I don't know, so I understand what you're saying there. It's very evident.
Yeah. And it does, it goes, we each hold a responsibility for all of the creation.
So, okay. So then go back to, in the time frame of 2025, what's going to change? What are they hoping for?
So visually what they showed me was how the designers and the engineers work together. They have some form of communication, but they don't actually talk like us. They don't understand how that works, but they do communicate, and they come together creating a perfectly simulated molecule. And you have witnessed this. Everybody has witnessed this before. That through them talking, then the designers create it, and they make sure that this little itty molecule is perfect. And then when they're done and it's complete, they hand it over to engineers, and then the engineers implement it exactly where it's supposed to be to take form, to start, activating. And so 2025, literally they're showing me, here they are. They're working hard. They're communicating. They're trying to come together and make these molecules, okay, and figure out how to implement each one individually, so that way we can start experiencing a lighter, brighter part of our existence. But to implement these molecules, we have to shift our molecules first. Otherwise, there's not a vibrational match.
Well, and they said too in your session, that they won't do that. I think they even said they couldn't do that, but if they did, it would be too much for us.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And it would. I mean, we wouldn't even know what we were looking at. We wouldn't even know how to experience it. We would be so stuck in all of our fear and our pain and our anxieties and things that we're holding on to, that are existing in our DNA at the memory levels that we're vibrating at. And they can't just drop in this new 4D molecule that has such a different energy that we've never experienced and go, here you go. It's, we actually have to do the work. But they're definitely working really hard on all of that. And then this fear rose up from this virus, which the virus was actually only created for us to help understand deeper levels of our healing, our existence, our understanding about things, how things vibrate, how nothing actually is solid. I mean, there was such a huge key to the virus, and for people to really take the fear and just spread it. I mean, they just had to stop everything we're doing, and they're like, this is out of control. This is it. We have to start interceding. And they're trying. I mean, it's crazy. It seems like they got it to where it was more at a neutral point, because now things are opening up. People are like, people don't even believe it's real. I mean, we went from, oh my God, panic, into, well, is it even real? And so that right there shows you the engineers were already extracting the fear molecules at that point. But here's the interesting thing. There's always polarity with everything. So I don't really pay attention much to the news, but my daughter came to me yesterday. She goes, have you heard what happened? I said, no. She explains. And now there's this huge other massive fear-based thing trying to come in and detour the light workers from shifting at the molecular stage, because it's all a distraction.
Right.
And if we can just pull ourselves back and go, oh, it's a distraction. Is this actually really affecting me and my own reality right now? Sit in the present moment. What is it doing to you? How is it making you feel? What is it, and start taking control over all of your reality. Until we go inward to do that, it's going to be really hard to shift.
Right. So, I wonder what the designers and the engineers are thinking, before the virus. It's like, okay, they're doing it. They're, we're making some headway, things are going, and then it's like, hold the fort.
Yep. Excitement. So much excitement. I mean, you could have seen it in people. I mean, people were excited. They were ready. And then, the polarity came in and they're like, hey, you're not done yet. You haven't done the work.
Shoot, we got to go back to the drawing board a little bit and look at our own responsibility to our creation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having that label, which I don't like labels a whole lot because it's just, a label is a label. You have a label, you have a list of expectations that follow underneath the label.
Right.
So I guess we could use the label light worker and the expectations of a light worker. Now we need to understand what the responsibilities of a true light worker actually are. It's not just to sit in meditation and eat healthy.
So what would be your understanding then of going forward in your highest and best to help?
A lot of checking in with yourself daily, with your thoughts, with your actions, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your memories, what your dreams are. Really do a lot of self-checking and start working with you, because that's actually where it starts. That's honestly what I'm getting out of the whole thing. If you eat something and you're like, oh, that didn't make me feel good, well, check in with yourself. Like, did that make me feel this or did it make me feel this? And go after the thing you want. See, it's all known to us, but people for some reason can't choose actually what they're wanting or what they're after, because they don't take us, they don't take the back car. They don't let themselves sit in the back and go, okay, so I drove here. Why am I here? What's it look like? What's it make me feel like? Do I want to stay here?
Yes. And we have the power to turn and go a different way.
Yes. In every moment, every second.
Wow. Okay. What else do you feel is important to share today?
Let me look here. There's so much, today was just wow, I thought we were going to be just discussing a few topics, and business, it went crazy. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to tell Suzanne, your husband, he's an engineer.
Yes.
Which is really funny to me in this whole situation. I was like, I need to tell him to make a mental recorder without me having to actually talk.
I think he would like that, so I would use it.
Because there was so much thought process going through. I'm like, there's no way I can literally remember all of this, write it all down, or even say it out of my mouth.
Right. But
crazy.
How does it feel to you to get all this information and process it? How is it for you?
It's overwhelming. It creates, when it starts happening and I'm getting the massive amounts of information like today, it felt like a lot of ants racing through my body. And I could describe it as like an anxiety feeling. It wasn't like anxiety, but that's the closest thing I could say. But it was just like ants racing through my body. My mind was on hyperdrive. My thoughts were going so fast. nothing would stop. I couldn't focus on anything in my life. It was just like taking over, and it was massive. And then when it's done, I'm just like, there's so much energy in my body that I'm just almost like vibrating or shaking, if that makes sense. And that's when I text you. I was like, oh, I just need to calm somehow. I haven't figured that out. And this has happened just a few other times before this. So I'm warming up into this new kind of energy and trying to ground it and work with it. So it's not an easy thing, but it's something that I'm open to learn about and work with.
Okay. Well, and I just wonder too, if, as you're, we're less than a week. No, we're about a week post session with you.
Yeah.
So are you able to ask your own questions and receive the information, or do you feel like you're more just receiving their information?
I'm receiving a lot. I have had some mental questions, like if I'm studying something or reading something, well, how does that pertain into this? And they'll give me this ginormous explanation. I'm like, oh, whoa, I don't know if I can even comprehend that. Slow down, So that does happen at moments. Honestly, it's really interesting when people ask me a question, information just comes out. But it's not actually from me, and I want people to understand that. Like, this is nothing to do with me at all as a person. Like, zero. Like, this is no, because I literally myself don't know any of this. So I take no glory in any of it because it's not coming from me. If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. There's other people, a friend of mine is a writer named Paul Selig, and he says the same thing. He writes books with all this information coming through, and he's like, they said to put my name on the outside, but it's coming through me. So yes, I do understand that.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. Some fun things I could share about after coming out of hypnosis was, and it's so weird because I do talk about magic in my hypnosis, which is really interesting, but I was experiencing such odd experiences after. I was with a good friend and we're driving home, and all of these synchronicity things were happening. We would talk about something and then it would show up. Like 30 seconds later, it would show up in the reality. And we were both like, oh, this is so weird. And then like I sit down and I get a bottle of water and I hand it to her. And I was like, oh, here's your water. And she goes, how'd you know I was going to ask for water? I said, you didn't ask me? So I want people to know, like, this experience goes far beyond anything you can imagine.
It does. It just opens you up in such unexpected ways, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And of course, there's the darker part of it where I'm processing this reality and things that happened here, of course. But that's things I need to work on. So I'm actually feeling blessed that it's coming up and coming to the surface, and I have to focus on it and I have to work with that energy. So that's actually a blessing in disguise. I want people to know that. One thing that I feel like we didn't talk about was when you were counting me up.
Yeah. You shared this with me. It's a great story. So tell it to us.
This was it's so different.
And let me just interrupt just a minute to say that it takes about a minute, maybe two, to count a client up. So that's all the physical time we were dealing with here. Now this will be even funnier.
Yes. So this felt like it took forever. First of all, I'm going to say that because she's like, no, it only took like maybe a minute. And I was like, no way. There's no way that happened in a minute. So when she's getting ready to count me up, so to speak, from which now I understand because I heard the recording, that part. So I knew it was counting me up. So that's where I'm getting that information. I was shown my body floating in, like the darkness. There's nothing there. It's the nothingness. And I'm just laying flat, floating there. And I can see my body, and I look so small, like a little grain of sand.
Like you see your body on my table?
Nope, in the nothingness.
In the nothingness. Okay, gotcha.
Black all around me, and there's my body just laying flat, floating. But I'm so tiny. I mean, I'm so tiny, like a little minuscule, like molecule of sand. And I'm slowly moving closer to it and slowly moving closer to it. And I'm getting bigger and bigger, you know, and I come underneath my body. And I'm starting to float up towards my body. And this is taking like quite a while, you know. And in that moment, I see this other thing. Don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's a spirit form or whatever. I don't know what people want to call it, but it is something coming down out of my body as I'm floating up.
To your body?
Yes, from underneath.
Okay.
And, okay, that's weird. And so I'm floating up. This thing is floating down. And in the nothingness, we actually kind of cross each other, like side by side, as
like,
they're coming down and I'm coming up.
So
like
you're going up, it's coming down, and then you stop.
And just like that. And the minute that we meet, they gave me this massive download of understanding. And this might sound really bad for some people, so I'm forewarning. They said, you know, your life and why you came here, it's so minuscule. It's so unimportant. It's really, you know, not the purpose of this whole thing. And I was just like, okay. And they said, but it's okay because we had work to do here. And that's actually what was important. So when you listen to your and all this information is happening while we are literally floating in the nothingness, passing each other. And they said, so when you listen to this and it pertains nothing to your current life, do not bring your ego into it. Take no emotions about it. And just understand that the higher purpose is at play here. And in that moment, it was just like this overwhelming energy took over. And it was just like, okay, it wasn't about me as a person.
As an individual.
Yep. Like my whole life, because you know, I came into it, my whole life has been somewhat crazy. So here,
as lots of human lives are.
Right. We all have these crazy lives. And so here I am with this crazy life. And I'm like, it'd be cool to maybe get some answers why it's so crazy. And in that moment, they're like, your life is really just not very important. Sorry. And we're going to remove your ego about that. It was really about getting some messages through and serving the higher purpose. So please don't get upset about it and bring your ego into this. Just accept it. And I was like, okay, that was weird. And I continue floating up into my body, and this thing's going down and going back to the nothingness where I was with the designers and the cylinders and all of that stuff. And as I'm going up into my body, it was so weird because I felt like as I was merging into my body, it was like I was inflating my body like a mattress, you know, when you're pumping up an air mattress and it's inflating. It felt like that, like I was inflating into my body. It was the weirdest experience, just crazy. So yeah, the understanding in that exchange was, hey, this isn't about you. And I was like, okay.
Wow, just on so many levels. Wow. So I mean, you know, and as you're sharing that, you know, I think, you know, in a human experience, we do, without realizing, we get very tunnel visioned into our own experience, which is important on other levels. You know, it's the like diving in and looking at what makes us tick, and, you know, and what we wish to do while we're in this perceived experience, right? But then, I mean, that was almost on the opposite end of, you know, we're molecules working to understand the molecules, I guess,
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting in your session too, as the designer was saying, I think it was when she was talking about the nothingness, that we're just, the engineers don't see us as our physical cells. They see us as molecules in the cylinder.
Yes. Yeah, they don't see our realities. Like, we're sitting here in this third dimensional reality, what we all think is real, and that's not. I can't even, it just blows my mind, because it took me probably a week to actually feel like I was a part of this world again, because it just felt so little and so unimportant. And literally they made it look so like, oh, you're just a little grain of sand, and this, all this stuff that you think is important really isn't. It's so tiny and minuscule, so unimportant. And they made me feel like, this reality is just so tiny and it's so unimportant. And
I wonder if that's like the when we talk about the infiniteness, right? I mean, on that scale, you could see that.
Yeah.
And then when you're back in this, this understanding, it's so different.
Oh, it's so weird, because sometimes, like, I go in my backyard and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, this world feels really big, and it's really not. Like, literally, I have this self-talk now because I've seen it, and I'm just like, if people could just see it, they would understand how little their problems really are, and how to maybe take that step back and start controlling, like, the simulation a little bit more. I mean, they're controlling it, but they're not understanding they're controlling it.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it?
It's huge. It's huge. Just massive. And there's so much tied to all of this. There's so many things to understand, but this is so big to me, and they're telling me this is just not even like the tip of the iceberg, but we got to get this out there, for people to ponder.
Well, and I think that's so fascinating too, because as I've watched comments and talked to people, I've gotten so many emails about your session, the recording that we put out. It just over and over, I hear, oh my gosh, like, I needed to hear this, and I understand this, and this brought tears to my eyes, and I get this. And, I think you and I were talking about how, your voice and the information that was flowing through has shifted people who listen to that in ways that, we probably can't even quite comprehend, but it's part of what was needed in the simulation. Would you agree with that?
So the designer did tell me she did create this molecule, and my simulation with what had happened in my life, like I told you, I felt cornered and everything got taken away.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to accept that molecule, and it got dropped into my simulation. And it started vibrating, and those vibrations were changing the molecules in my reality, which is where the bits and pieces of information were coming from, was from that original molecule. And for some reason, I kept asking myself, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm not technology versed. I don't have a YouTube channel. I'm not a Insta whatever, I literally, and I really stayed out of the limelight. This is actually the first time in my life I get to fully be myself, and speak as myself, unfiltered. And that's beautiful. I do want to say thank you for that. But the designer did drop that molecule in. All this information started bouncing off in there. And I feel like there are no mistakes, that your simulation, and you keep saying this to me, we're matching. There's so much in common. Like, see, our vibrations were matching, and that's where come in.
Right.
You're supposed to take the information and put it into the collective and help. And so this is literally, we're watching how one little molecule that a designer creates, how it works, how it bounces off, how it connects with others, how it's going to transform the collective, and how these things actually start. Like, we are witnessing it because we're in it. We're actually
Right.
right now.
I'm liking our simulations right now. This is just so much fun to learn from.
It is. It is.
Wow. And as we've talked, and I'm sure, obviously there's no coincidences, right? I mean, our friendship was meant to be, but our coincidences, our similarities, and things that we've experienced through our lives are so close.
Yes.
And it's kind of like your drive home with your friend, just you talk about something and there it is. And and I think that's all of us, if we look at it through that lens, instead of, well, that was strange. Why would that happen? If we say, oh, if you go back to your molecules and your tube and your designer and your engineers, and you can see that, we're creating it all. So that means we can shift everything and create, a way better experience, which is where we are headed.
Yes, by becoming aware. And we hold a lot of responsibility by waking up and becoming aware, and people need to know that.
On an individual level.
Yes, absolutely, 100% individually. Because we all affect each other.
Right. And what I would love to go back to that meeting where they said, okay, they're gonna feel like they're individuals, they're gonna feel like everything's solid, but it's not. And
oh, I know. No, I know. And to, it probably all started when people started dabbling into quantum, existences and realities and things like that. That probably was the beginning of understanding that all of this is existing right now while you and I are talking. It's going on at the same time, but it's at a level that we can't see or comprehend it because we're at this level, not that level, but it's still happening.
Right. Wow. Okay. What else do you want to put out? What else do you feel is so important to get out?
I feel like everything we've already talked about is going to really, people are going to have to, it's going to be ingested.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like listening to your session, you think, wow, that's a lot to take in, but this extra information is just so beautiful because it makes that more understandable.
Absolutely. And that's why we had to get this out. The visual aspect is definitely tied to the information that was given during that process. They go hand in hand. And so this is so needed. The visual attached to, the information. And so these things will go together and people will have aha moments. And honestly, I'm excited because that's us shifting.
Yes. We can imagine that the designers and the engineers are going, yes, all right. This is,
yeah.
The molecules are doing what they're intended to do and to create the highest and best reality within their simulation.
Absolutely. And I would definitely encourage each person to sit within themselves and create actually what they want. I mean, all of the light workers and the people, that want good, that want this new experience, sit within yourself and start creating that, start making that, start removing the things holding you back from that, and I feel like that is really tying into the engineers and what they're trying to do at the same time. If we can, kind of help, by stopping creating 3D and start understanding what we need to do, then we're helping them with their process, with the extraction.
Right. Giving them less to have to filter out.
Yeah, which actually, in essence, probably speeds up the process, which everybody keeps saying, we just want it to happen. Well, for it to happen, we have to take responsibility.
and do the work.
Yep.
No instantaneous flashes, no blink your eyes and it's over. We just have got to keep going forward, and we know what to do. And thankfully to people like you who have this very profound information to share, it gives us I guess like a clearer roadmap and a deeper understanding of it all, and we can stop with our own little pity parties and our victimization thoughts and take control of our realities and our simulation.
Welcome the pity. Welcome all of those feelings in. Quit out. It doesn't exist. It's there. Face it. Figure it out. Sit with that pity. Sit with, the victimization. Sit with those feelings. That's the only way we're going to actually change it at a molecular level.
Right.
I don't want to look at it, so it's going to just go vibrate over there, but it's still a part of us.
Well, and we know this in this work too, that when we subconsciously do that, we repress it and we don't look at it. You know what it does? It creates injury, illness, disease within the physical body. We every time I'm doing a session and we're talking about issues within the body, it's because of memories, emotions, experiences that they've held on to, very, sometimes more deeply than other times. But the physical body can't run well with that. And so what a great lesson in sitting with it, understanding it, releasing it, and then creating something in a much higher vibration.
Absolutely. See, you're already doing the work.
Man, I want to get through it all. And I mean, that's why we're here, on the simulated planet right now, to learn from that. I mean, what a great place of growth.
Yeah.
And we're affecting the collective that way.
Yep. And we're all connected.
Yeah. And that giant wave up above all oh my gosh.
And I want to understand that the molecules in the collective, if they drop into your simulation, that means that you're a vibrational match. You need to sit with that vibration and figure that out.
Well, and so if I could just take that to a literal understanding, is like the first couple of weeks that this virus became so pronounced, and it's always in the news, and, and we all kind of went in, within ourselves and like, oh my God, how is this going to affect me? And is it going to be, millions on the planet going to die? And, what about the people I love? And, it was, in a way, there's sirens coming, which is always my sign of, oh, there's never a coincidence, right?
Never.
Warning. One more dose. Wow, you cannot script this if you tried, right?
No, it's like you said, each person, when they went inward, were experiencing that in such a different way. That was the key.
Right.
Those are the that you needed to sit with. That's why you're in isolation. You're there to do the work, to figure this out, to change the vibration. You're not distracted by all of the worldly distractions.
Right. And I think when we look back, and compare, what we were doing and our thoughts and all that before this lockdown, we were just kind of on this treadmill and just, not thinking about our thoughts and our actions. And it's really been the most amazing gift, even to those two molecules that decided to, wreck the sphere across the globe. It really has been a remarkable way to help people think for themselves and question and wake up. So it's, it kind of had the boomerang effect, I think.
It's a blessing.
It is a blessing. And that I can't wait to know more about the great discovery that comes from the molecules of.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. I can't wait, because that's going to drop down into these scientists who do all this tremendous work. And it's going to vibrate at these different levels and uncover so many things. Like, I'm just excited to see how things start taking form.
it's going to unfold in ways that, I think, I don't know how many years, 10 years, 20 years, we'll look back and go, oh my gosh, that was really one of the coolest things that happened, even though it didn't look like that at the time.
Yeah, it's all perception.
Absolutely.
Perception. People will wake up and realize, when you take the back seat, something shows up. How do you want to perceive it? How do you want to vibrate with that? How do you want to expect?
Right. And how empowering is that? I mean, to know, A, you're creating it. B, it's so that you can look at yourself a little bit more deeply and what is it that you want to shift about that. I mean, it's really easy, actually, when you think about it that way.
I know. Look at you. You just put out like massive information.
Well, I just want to say from the deepest parts of my physical heart and my energetic heart, thank you, Beverly, for allowing us to continue this conversation. It's been a joy to be a part of your story. And I was so grateful to be able to put your session out. I do that, because I know that not everybody can have a session, but yet there's things that people can learn from other people's sessions. And girl, yours was just that. And, I know you have zero ego attached to this, but thank you for how you are helping to grow and expand human consciousness with your information. And, we'll have to meet up again and do another session and have another chat. And please keep letting us know the information that you're getting so that we can share it and get it out there. Maybe we can do another conversation like this again.
Okay, that sounds good. Whenever.
Oh, that would be great. I think we'll have a lot of fun with that.
Absolutely. This has been just remarkable. I'm excited for everybody to just sit with the information.
Right. And, and I just want to say, from your past life, tying into the current life, and you said it, that you're out there now and you want to share what you know, and you're not hiding yourself anymore. And that was the purpose of that past life, to show you that. And look at you, you're doing it.
Regaining my power back.
Yes.
I've been hiding this whole life. So this is me coming out as myself.
I'm so happy you did. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. Thank you very much, Beverly.
Thank you.